Thank you so much. I think that most of us would agree that teaching people management to leaders and managers is an important task for all of us to do. But many of us would experience, if I ask clients how easy it is or how difficult it is to engage managers in any platform or any learning activity, they say in many cases, oh, Jesus, that's really hard stuff. And in many times, they tell me that we think that it is the willpower, whether they want to learn or develop, whether they don't want. However, many research says that unfortunately, this might not be the biggest barrier for managers to learn, but it's rather the system and the tool which can have a larger impact on our willpower, whether we intend to participate in any learning activity or whether we don't. I remember back to the morning when Tiffany said that had a question about the remaining 44% of the people who don't want to learn. Actually, I think that with a better design system, it's possible to engage more people and more managers to learn. I will show you some case studies with our clients, what we had, but I would like to draw your attention on a very important thing. Maybe you should not listen to what the solution was, but I try to challenge you to think of or pay attention to how we thought about this issue, how we arrived to the solution. So I will explain them a little later. So the first challenge, which Deutsche Telekom is one of our biggest clients, actually, they said that, hey, Robbie, our managers are very busy. How can we overcome that they have no time to attend in any training activities? Maybe you're faced with the same issue when you listen to your managers and say, oh, I don't have time to develop myself. When we started to think of this, if they're busy, obviously, classroom trainings could not be an option because we cannot take them out of their job and just take them into classroom training and teach them something new or refresh some of those skills. The second option we considered that, oh, maybe an e-learning platform, an LMS, could be a good candidate. Could be. But it takes the same amount of behavior. What we have to do is take the managers out, sit in front of a computer, allocate enough time and energy, and it's still taking them out of their job, which they still have no time. So what the third option we started to think of? Let's go where they are. Let's go to the shop floor. Let's go to their work. How can we do that? Is there any device which they have with them with each and every moment when they are at work? For sure, that's their cell phones. Okay, then let's move everything we want to that cell phone. However, mobile learning is a lot different to e-learning. Many companies, many clients, many clients identify that if the learning platform is responsible and I can watch it on my cell phone, it's mobile learning. No, it's not. Because we use our mobile phones absolutely differently to our computers and to our tablets. We not scroll down like hell. We don't we don't watch lengthy videos. So the whole way of teaching has to be rethought. So how we did it? The question was absolutely crucial from time perspective. You know that the biggest challenge with any learning activity that there is a moment of learning when we take the person out of the job, we teach something to them, and we have the anticipation that he will apply it when he goes back to work. Unfortunately, human brain is not so good in associating like this. If you read many neuroscientific research, this is now the #1 finding, that if I teach somebody in a situation, it's still challenging to take it to different situation. So anything we teach in trainings, it's hard for them to apply on the job, and the stress is a lot different. Because if I'm in the activity, I must solve it now. If I'm in a training room, nobody forces me to solve it. So there are a couple of other dynamics from the behavioral perspective, which is a lot different. So what we did, we just said, okay, the Deutsche Telekom's managers was taking a lot of training. So we said, okay, we should not deliver then knowledge. What we should do, reminders. But reminders must be short, less than 5 minutes. This is how we came to the notion of micro-learning. So what we precisely did with the application when we worked with these L&D professionals, that we broke down all the contents like slicing a book, you know, with a scissor. Actually, we just broke it down to 3 to 5 minutes learning chunks, which is applicable immediately in that situation where they are. And it was really funny that we had a little joke with the HR managers that she said that but e-learning is something that everybody is going forward. And I just told her that, listen, e-learning is really, really old school. Even Moses has downloaded information to a tablet from the cloud. So it's so old school. I mean, why the hell we want to do it? So anyway, what we just thought of, so it's always a time that you have to think of. So what we finally did, we reminded them in a maximum 5 minutes to what is important in that situation. KPMG is our second client. They just put these 2 tough questions for us that how can we provide support when and where they encounter a problem? If I translate these questions, the underlying problem is that we as an L&D professionals are not there when they face with an issue. We might be there when we teach them, but we are not there when they have an issue. So how can we manage that we try to help them to solve a situation, or how can we customize what they get instead of what's available? Many companies put together menus like a learning catalog, which is not bad, I'm not saying this, but it's not applicable. So all I'm talking about is behavioral change, not just learning. So what we did here, easy. We built around situations. If I remember back when I was an executive in Europe with several big companies like IBM for 13 years, if I just call it back, I mean, did I have an issue or a problem or a dilemma in every situation I was? No, I didn't. Were there certain moments when I had a dilemma? Yes, I was. Yes, I did have it. So what we did, that we identified about 120 about the most common situations where the managers may have a dilemma. And what we try to do, we try to formulate also, like in a dilemma, it's a question. How can I do it? What should I do now? I'll give you an example. I'm sitting in a meeting which is really boring and it gets stuck. Do you know what's going to happen in the meetings? Managers will do like this. Sometimes they post their cats on Facebook or whatever. But they start to play with their cell phones. This is what you can experience in any boring meeting. So what if we have an application where you just type it, hey, but the meeting is boring. Do you have any idea what I can do? I just got a very beautiful email from one of our clients, one of the managers, and he just wrote me that he just went through some suggestions, and one of them grabbed his attention and said, hey, man, I've got an idea. And he managed to keep the ball rolling on that meeting. So this is how maybe you can think of a little bit of a behavioral change rather than teaching something. So if you ask me, maybe it's a consideration how you can build around the most likely situations. Not all the situations. I understand we cannot cover all, but it should be around the most likely ones. The second thing is we should keep it simple. If we want them to use it in situ, then it should be simple. I've got a beautiful story for this. Once I've been in a conversation with an L&D professional in Europe, and he asked for a demo of the application, and he said, we like it, but to be honest, it's too simple. We surveyed about 2,000 users. We've got about 2,000 managers in our system today. Do you know what was the second best thing they rated our application on? We like it because it's simple. So there might be a gap between what we as L&D professionals think the managers need and what they actually need. So this is always a question, always interesting to compare data with our beliefs, which help, and what they really think is helpful for them. Second, that if we want to if we want them to solve an issue or a situation, it must be focused. You know how we do it? Can you see videos here? Can you see links here? No, you can't. Why? Because I want them to solve that particular issue. If I add a video, what's going to have with the focus? If I add more links, he can browse for more content. It opens even wider. So what we specifically did, of course you can add videos, but a different section, because here we wanted them to solve that particular challenge they have. So it must be focused. I would give you another example. This is also kind of a feedback we got from the managers, that one of the users. He said that I had a hiring freeze. I could not hire anybody for 6 months in my team. And 6 months later, I received a hiring ticket, and I was just approaching to the meeting room where the candidates sat. And I was just thinking that, shit, it was 6 months before when I just had a chance to conduct an interview. What the hell I should do? Oh, Jesus, I've got something on my phone. And you know what? He wrote us an email that he made a much better interview than he did without the application. Did he make a perfect interview? No. Did he make a step better? Yes, he did. So this is what we think of, what we started to think of, that it's enough if it's one step better. Maybe it shouldn't be 2, shouldn't be 3. Maybe it's just one step better, is a little bit better. So we wanted to keep them focused. So this is how we structured the content in this solution, that it must be text, it must be really focused. And the third one, which I really love when I talk to people having learning management systems, that they say that, oh yeah, it's so widespread. We use crazy simple and linear logic. Because if we want them to focus, if I add, more trees and you can go here and there, lost the focus. So what we simply want, you can, as you have seen, ask a question, have an answer, and I will explain a little bit later how to do a follow-up. And those ones who do the follow-up develop, and those ones who don't do the follow-up, they don't develop that much. So this is really what the data says. So what we intended with KPMG, that we wanted to have a linear logic, simple and easy. Yeah, what we had with Audi. Audi is also a client. They asked me the question that how can we help managers change behavior? Before I go into the section, maybe I would give you a little explanation what we mean by behavioral change. If you ask me, I may not want to develop a manager to be smarter, but rather to behave differently. And if I put behavior in the focus, we must understand the simple equation. There are 2 things having impact on behavior: the antecedents or the triggers and the consequences. I'll give you an example, a simple one. I can see you working in the office late in the afternoon. This is the trigger. I go to you and I'll help you out. This is my behavior. But based on, I will repeat up or stop my behavior whether you say thank you or not. How it is easy that companies make this wrong. They make a lot of trainings on how teams are important, team buildings, pictures on the wall, posters, whatever that you've heard in the morning. That teamwork is the behavior we want. And they distribute the bonuses by the end of the year on an individual level. Do you know what behavioral scientists say? The consequences have 4 times bigger impact on changing behavior. That's what you can experience on your kids. It's rather easy. Or even your dog or whatever pet you have. Consequence management, this is the key to behavioral change. So it's not enough. I mean, I don't say that it's a bad thing, but it's not enough to teach. So each learning activity is mainly on the trigger side. Not all of them, but many of them is on the trigger side. So how we do this? How we insist the managers to change their behavior? Number 1 thing, what researchers, behavioral scientists say, measure progress. I just read a very beautiful article issued by Stanford University. They tested different dietary things in the United States. And you know what they found? Each dietary program had worked if people did it but they didn't do it. They didn't do it. That's it. So this is, for example, the number one thing that I must feel the progress. I'm progressing to somewhere. And this is how you can see, I just made a little cut, that you can see how much of a topic you went through, or even in many, many cases, you have to make it visual. So if you think of designing a learning management system on behavioral change, think of visuals. I mean, it must be in front of the managers that I'm moving towards something. The second thing on behavioral change is absolutely follow-up. Reminders, emails. This is what we send. I don't know if you happen to use any fitness or dietary applications on your cell phone. What you can see, you receive reminders, you receive emails. Maybe sometimes they are too frequently, sometimes they are less frequently. But anyway, timely follow-up is absolutely crucial. It's a good candidate to insist somebody on changing behavior. We do have gamification. We implemented gamification for OD, but not for its own sake, because it's not for playing, but how the rewards, how the badges come to behavioral change. Badges are on the consequence part. If you remember back to the equation I told you before, that I do something and I immediately got a feedback that I achieved something. So that's why gamification is a good candidate, not because it's fun and everybody talks about it, but it's rather think of that, okay, maybe it makes sense. If he made a step forward, maybe I must praise them somehow. And this was one of the ideas that we did. And lastly, sometimes, in many cases, if I ask a manager, I really work with many of them, they always lack of feedback. But how can we make it simple? Normally, companies do 360s, but my view on 360s, although sometimes they are less good design, sometimes better design, but why the hell I'm interested in my manager's feedback and on my peers' feedback? Their feedback on my behavior might be a little bit political, intentional, but what's the most important thing I must have feedbacks from on my leadership, my managerial behavior? It's my subordinates. So this is how we absolutely eliminated the upper parts of this feedback, and we made it really simple about 16 behaviors which the leadership science around the world, from Stephen Covey till Marcus Buckingham, agrees on, that those are the most important behaviors or most impactful behaviors the managers must do with their subordinates. And we rate them, for example, how we did it with Audi, we rated them in the first 3 months, by the subordinates, and 6 months later. What can you see? The progress. It was really powerful. There was no feedback. Nobody was asked to, like any assessment systems that, you know, that somebody comes to you and try to explain you what's your result. No, there's no explanation. You can see, I was rated on this behavior, and I was rated 6 months later. I can see the difference. I can see whether I made a step forward or whether I didn't. Yeah. This is my loveliest one. This is Siemens that they put to me, that unfortunately they wanted to change human nature. Like, the managers get bored easily, and they mainly focusing on urgent rather than what's important, and they are lazy. So what can we do with this? If you ask me, I would say that don't do anything with this. Changing people nature, changing human nature has a lot of money, a lot of energy. It doesn't worth it. But build on it. How can you do it? How will not be bored? Make it fun. And that's where, again, gamification comes into place when we just thought of this challenge of Siemens that, okay, they make it fun. You can see that. Sometimes we have badges, which is funny. You get this devilish badge when you collected 666 points. That's just fun. It has no value. It's just for entertainment. Secondly, how we address the second issue is, I don't know if you heard about the issue of incomplete tasks. This was the latest research in neuroscience, that unfortunately our brain works in a way that if we have incomplete tasks, it keeps us frustrated, and it depletes our willpower. So it doesn't make sense to have too many open tasks. Otherwise, your willpower gets depleted. So what we do, that we make visual action steps. This is how we did with the managers, that, okay, they must have visual action steps where they can make tick marks, and still they can see how many tick marks they did. And they also insisted their brain not to focusing what's incompleted, but rather what's completed. And also the third one, this is my favorite example on laziness. What should we do with laziness? How we can build on it? What we did, we made preset to-dos. All the managers have in the application have the chance to write their own to-do, that what I would like to do in this situation, with how I would like to do with this situation. But what's funny from the data perspective, as long as we had preset to-dos, they have chosen it almost all the time, one of the possible to-dos, and they didn't have their own one. If it were not part of this preset ones, then they didn't choose any to-do. So that's also interesting, that if I know that somebody is lazy, then maybe I offer him some possible action steps. And maybe he selects one or the other. If he is more in the topic, yeah, of course, maybe he can set his own one. But this is how we try to build on laziness. And maybe the last one that I would like to ask you, this was a beautiful example of Allianz, this insurance company. Yeah, always a question, usage rate and stuff like that. What we did here, this is, don't forget it, this is a virtual tool, or any e-learning platform is a virtual tool. As long as you keep it as a virtual tool, you will have little impact on people, specifically from the perspective of changing behavior. So what we do, we link it to programs. How? For example, one of our clients announced, the CEO has announced, this is our new strategy. 2 weeks later, we announced a challenge in the application. Yeah, you must get the badge, a visionary badge, and because the vision topic is about, in the application, how you can translate the big hairy goals relevant to your 5 subordinates. Or even I give you another example, that you know that the performance appraisal period is approaching. A month before, you announce a challenge that you must get the badge for the performance appraisal topic. They more likely will do it because it's coming. They know it's not far in the past. Till I get the badge, it's some weeks, I have to make the first performance appraisal face-to-face with one of my subordinates. So this is how you can link it to programs. Or even if you have a company design training program, that's what we did, by the way, also with Audi, or I'm discussing with them in Ingolstadt, that they have their own academy, but nothing happens in between the training sessions. How can we facilitate that when they go back to the shop floor, they apply something from what they have learned? Absolutely, we can link it to programs. The other option is link it to topics, as I said. If there is a trust building, if if there is a customer service or whatever, you can link it. You can increase the relevance rather than just offering them that you must learn this or that topic. And thirdly, I was surprised, to be honest. I did not believe that external awards has a motivational impact on behavioral change, but I was mistaken. I could give you two nice examples. One of our clients said, or it was Deutsche Telekom, their focus was on trust building. They've chosen a book which they wanted to distribute to their managers, but we started to think that what if we do not just distribute it, but only those one will get the book who complete a challenge, who gets the badge of building trust. Or even a more interesting example with Allianz. That was lovely. That was the loveliest example I've ever seen. The HR director has a budget that she can give to the managers for dinner, for taking their team for dinner out at the end of the year. And she just normally distributed the money, and then they went eating out. In that year, when we worked together, she said that, okay, only those managers will get the budget who gets 3 badges in series, which was important from the cultural change perspective, relevant to the company. You know what? Actually, she managed to achieve 90% activity rate, usage rate in the company. Can you imagine any tool with which you can achieve 90% of your manager population to participate in a learning activity? So basically, that was what I brought you, some cases, some ideas, how to think of how to think further. And I don't know if you have questions, just let me know. I try to be at your hand.
Okay. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I believe, Robert, you have a stand outside?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we have a stand outside.
So
We'll be there, so maybe if it's comfortable, then you can come to me as well.
Let's leave it for then. Thank you.
Thank you.